Home is a place.
No, no, no. Home is a feeling.
Home is my motherland.
It's more where you feel alive and inspired.
Well, I think we're talking about the same thing, aren't we? Home is where our story begins.
What's your story?
Homesick at Home every Friday from 9 to 10 p.m.
On Radio Van 103.1 with Ina MK
and Rina D.
Shot City, I'm coming home again.
Hello, good evening, dear listeners of Radio Van 103.1. We're back in our studio. This is a Friday night, and this is our English-speaking show, Homesick at Home. And here we see beautiful Rina D. and
my beautiful co-host Ina. How are you?
I'm fine, and hope that we'll have a little bit of this spring vibes because
we need some energy.
Yeah, we need some
and
energy.
I think we have the right guest here tonight for that.
We're gonna find out all about energy, all about exercise. Not all about, but some things, some hints, I hope.
So just relax.
Just relax, just enjoy. Yeah. Tonight we're chatting with Katia. How do you pronounce it, by the way? Radika? Radika?
This is it.
Lagunova. Good evening. Hello.
Hey, good evening.
How do you feel in this pose?
Super unusual, but this sofa is pretty comfortable.
Yeah, hopefully. And for those of you guys who don't have the opportunity to listen to Radio Van through the frequency, you can just go on our website, www.radiovan.fm, and watch and listen us live, as well as on our official Facebook page, which is Radio Van FM 103.1. Right now, you can see our guest sitting in the pose of lotus.
No, this is not lotus. This is just cross-legged.
Okay.
Lotus is a bit more complicated, but in this pants it's not very.
So just we started learning right here, right now. So
we have a lot to learn tonight, I think.
And we're ready.
I'm excited because this is a topic I'm very interested in.
Yeah, all of us are. And so let's start from the very beginning. So where were you born, Katia-chan?
I was born in Iran, in Moscow.
Okay. And then where have you lived? Tell us a bit about the story. Where have you lived?
Okay, so I was born there. I lived there, let's say, most of my life. I left in 2011. Mm-hmm. I've been invited to teach yoga. By that time, it was already yoga years. I was invited to teach yoga in Lebanon. Mm-hmm. And that was just a short invitation for 3 months, which ended up as 3 years. Mm-hmm. So I went there with a small suitcase, never planning to stay. Then it stayed as 3 years. And then from Lebanon, I moved here to Armenia. And before Lebanon, there was some short periods to stay in India. Mm-hmm. From, let's say, month 2 to 6 months. And then when I already was here, there was another, 2 occasions when I went to study, and then I went to volunteer also. So India is a little bit like short periods, and Lebanon, Armenia, it's more like living for a while. Armenia now home.
No.
So, let's say, more or less permanently.
Okay, so why Armenia?
Yeah.
Why?
I never
tell us the story.
There is not much story. When I was in Lebanon, I got married with Lebanese Armenian. This is how we moved here. Then we moved here, then we divorced, but I decided to stay. So this is the story, the short one. So there was a choice basically when situation in Beirut with the Syrian situation got a little bit tensed and not comfortable in 2013. So there was choice of now the world is very restricted. You need a visa, passports, and everything. So you're limited in the options. If you want to live elsewhere, not at your in the country you've been born, you're limited by those things. And unless you got some kind of job or invitation, you cannot go anywhere. So unfortunately, in this case, there was 2 options: Russia or Armenia.
So unfortunately, Armenia.
No, actually, fortunately, Armenia. That was let's say. Usually, I say I came here by chance, but I stayed by choice. So something like that. Because I never wanted to go back to Russia because, I grew up in Moscow. It's such a huge city and it's really not matching with the way I am. So, with the way I want to live. So in this sense, Russia never was much considered. So, and I never been to Armenia. That was another adventure. So already once jumped like that when I went to Lebanon. So it was interesting to try it. So the way we moved it was with one plane. Usually, most of diaspora, they come, they spend some time, then they go back and forth. They kind of investigate and they try to understand what to do here. So here it was really like adventure. I never been to Armenia before, and in my circle in Moscow there were never Armenians. So I never knew anything about this. So the only things I started learning were only when I came to Beirut. So all these things about history, genocide, and everything, all this I learned relatively late. And in Russia it's not really a topic. So rarely people know those details. Unfortunately, we used to be the same country, and somehow, at least through the history books in school, you should know something, but it's not there. You maximum you get one line in one of the books during your 10 years in school, that's all. So all those things you learn only if there is some kind of Armenian community. So that happened to be in Beirut. So I came here, never been to Yerevan before, and it was just idea that probably I will be able to come here and also teach yoga, let's say. And this is how it happened, fortunately. So somehow it was a bit rough first couple of years, but the last two, it's really conscious choice to be here, and
That's great.
very good place to be.
So you graduated law school.
Yes.
That
was so many years ago. Even now, it feels
You don't remember even.
No, I do remember, but the thing is, it now such a different life. So kind of, I still have some people on the Facebook or a little bit in touch, like through messages, with whom I studied, but it's such a you feel like it's been such a long time ago. So we graduated 2004, so that's 14 years almost. So you feel like it's another life somehow. But it's a good experience anyway. Even I don't work in that field, but it is a good experience in terms of how knowledge is knowledge.
Of course.
So
From law school, you moved on to a career in management consulting.
I started working when I was in the last years of university. It was that kind of consulting which related to law, to let's say corporate governance and everything. So it happens somehow through the last years in university, and then I continued after I graduated, and there was some smaller company, and then there was international company, one of the big four, and some typical life in Moscow. You go to university, then you do some corporate career, all these things, promotions, plans, whom you will be in 5 years, all these kind of questions.
So from corporate life to yoga, how and why?
Well, how and why? It was very gradual process actually, because from the first, let's say, from the first time when I started practicing yoga seriously, let's say regularly, that was about 10 years ago. I was still working and doing career and everything. I started just like everyone. Like Ina was telling me a story that she was practicing yoga while she was pregnant. So I went to do yoga because I was a little bit depressed, and I wanted some kind of mental relaxation from the corporate stress. And some other people, they go because they have some back pain or something. So it was very typical. You have some kind of issue you want to solve. You don't want to solve it through medicines, let's say, through taking medicines, and you try. You just go, you take yoga class, then maybe another one, you see how it goes. And then also you live in a big city, so it's not exactly regular. So 1 week you take 3 classes, another week you don't go at all. So this is how it was for me, because I was living very typical regular life. You go out, you drink, then next morning you skip your yoga class because of that, and things like that. It was very typical. And then slowly you start noticing that even with this irregular practice, it makes some changes in your life. And for me, it was very positive changes. So my interest grew. I grew more and more interested in what is it and what else could it do. So, and I was very fortunate to practice straight away in Moscow with Indian teachers. We had a yoga center there where the Indian teachers were teaching. So slowly I started taking some privates with them, asking more questions, and they introduced me to where they studied, actually, to their teachers in India who teach yoga for many years. And then one day one of my teachers, he asked me, don't you want to try and go do a training course to be a teacher yourself? And I was like, you took the question from my tongue, like I was like, but I was so shy to ask because I thought maybe I'm not practicing long enough to even think what can I teach. So, but he told me, no, it's not that exactly, that you need to practice number of the years, so then you are very old and you teach. It comes through different paths sometimes. So at that time, like it was many changes happening in my life, work-wise, personally-wise, and everything. So then I decided just to stop for a moment and book just the training course. The time, it's 1 month usually. This is the standard certification. So you go for 1 month and you live in a certain place, and this is from early morning till late evening you study. So I decided just to go. I never been to India. I didn't know even how it works. So I will go and try. This was the idea. So I went to try. I graduated. Then one of my teachers from there, he's still joking sometimes to new students. He points at me, but if I'm there, and he says, like, look at her. She's the person who graduates from the course. She left, and then after 1 week, she wrote me email. Can I come back for longer to volunteer? This was the story. It's really true. So I came back home, and then I felt that I really need a little bit more experience in the same environment, in the ashram. So I wrote to him and I said, like, can I come and volunteer for 6 months? And he told me yes, and I went later on next year. So this is how it was. And then those 6 months, they were, also it's very early when you graduate. The first year that you teach, it's a lot of, it's a lot of uncertainty. It's a lot of self-doubt, what you do, how you do, and everything. So those 6 months they're teaching in a more relaxed manner, not in commercial classes, but more like you volunteer. So you teach the classes, but you don't do it for money, but you do it, and also you teach sometimes Indians. So
speaking of money, we need to go.
Yes.
We need to go on a little advertisement break, and I hate to interrupt you. Stay tuned.
Everybody
This
else
is
doing-
Homesick at Home with amazing Katia, yoga teacher. We have a lot of questions, so stay with us and learn more and more about yoga. Ռեն, խի ուշացար, պրիտոմ չզանգեցիր, պրոպկա էր։
Հայերեն խոսիր հասկնամ։
Ռեն, ինչու ուշացար, ընդ որում չզանգահարեցիր, խցանում էր։
Ինչեր։
Never mind.
Չէ, ասե ինչեր։
This isn't gonna work. Typical repeat.
Oh, here she goes again.
And I'll be doing it every Friday with you on Radio Van.
Homesick at home.
Homesick at Home, we're back with
Yes.
my repat friend, Rina D, and our tourist,
I'm not a tourist anymore.
who came by chance and stayed by choice.
Yeah, but I've never been tourist here.
Yeah. Well, we've read in your bio that you love to explore Armenia.
Yeah.
So maybe we can speak about that a little bit. So
Let's
do you
do.
have any favorite places around Armenia? And just
Well, I cannot single out, actually. The whole country is my favorite place. Let's call it like that, because when you go almost every Sunday, some kind of hiking trip, and then you go also sometimes few days trips, and now I also cycle around Armenia, so you cannot single it out. There are some places when you go for a longer, and like just like it imprints in your memory, is kind of like like it's a mental photo. But pretty much all over Armenia and Artsakh, it's very much beautiful. This
so
was
you've been in
the main
Artsakh as well.
main reason why I decided to stay. Is the nature in Armenia, is the mountains in Armenia, because let's say 2 years ago, when it was like choice, should I stay or shall I work somewhere abroad and everything, and keep here is just like some kind of base, or let's say home you go back once in a while. I went hiking, and there was, I don't even remember where was it, but we walked a lot, then we climbed somewhere, and then there was a sunset. And then I just looked around and I was like, I don't really need to go anywhere. Why to go anywhere when already everything is super fantastic here? So, and if maybe internally there was still some doubts, but not related to Armenia, but maybe to the life that I live and what's happening, then it got me some kind of confidence that with the time can be always overcome, and like somehow you get to somewhere where you want to be. And then slowly I start hiking every Sunday, and that was 2016. Then last year I bought a bicycle, I started cycling, and then it went more and more and more, and this year hopefully everything will be fine and there would be more discovery. So that's the best place. So everybody who doubts, usually people tell me like how happens that most of the local people, they want to leave and go work in Russia.
Right.
And you came here, you feel like you are the fish going against the flock. And they tell me what's here, like simple people. I go to market, buy vegetables, something. So usually they ask because, they see, I learned a little bit of Armenian. So I go speak with them in Armenian, and then they start asking the usual questions, And after they're done with all this, do you have a husband, do you have kids, and all these things, which is mandatory to ask after I don't know where you're from. Then they start asking what exactly I do here, and why do I want to stay? Because according to them, there is nothing special about Armenia. There is nothing that should keep you here. So whenever you have opportunity to leave, you leave. But this is why they should go and see, let's say Armenia, maybe a little bit high, the highland.
So what do you say to these people?
That's what I tell them. I just like them. I just like it. So I tell them what I do. I go hiking and I see the Armenia above the villages, where you don't see people. So you separate, because of course there would be always political problems, corruption and everything. Maybe not always, but let's say eventually, hopefully, it all will sort out a little bit. But at the moment, if you focus on those negative things, then you will get just so much fed up with this. But sometimes you have to refocus and see, because there are so many positive things about this country, and climate, how small and cozy it is, how even those, the poorest people, how generous they are, how welcoming they are. But you need to see it, because initially you might focus on something, you can see here in the capital, people who are very tired, and then you look at them and you feel like they're rude. Maybe. This is what first year when I arrived, after Lebanese hospitality, for me it was the biggest shock. And I was like, wow, how it could be like that. But then you should see elsewhere, you should see some other things. And but in the beginning it's a little bit of effort. You should focus your mind on just being positive and seeing those things, and you will see it, because there is a beauty and there are good things, and you need to find somehow things that you want to do. You need to make choices in your life, not to live maybe like everybody lives or as you lived before. So you change a little bit and you see where you can be function and live comfortably and then happily also. So you change something, and then you find your circle, the people who understand you and not just judge you, because also here it's very traditional in some parts of society, and they kind of very judgmental how you live and what they do, but every country have those kind of people.
Yes.
So you can go against them and get upset or get angry and everything, or you can find a way around, because any country have enough of space for everyone. Will they change or not, doesn't matter. As long as they live their life and they make some kind of choices, conscious or not, doesn't matter, it's still choices. As long as you do your choices, and then if you're confident about this, you will live that kind of life. And if you're confident, nobody have to approve you, nobody have to tell you, oh, this is good. They don't tell you, it's fine.
Wow, this is a
like
real yoga, peaceful, peaceful atmosphere.
But this is how
wisdom.
you take your yoga from the mat, which is most of the people, they just go and they do some poses, leg up, leg down, turn right and left. This is what I try to teach my students. That yoga is not just about doing some kind of twisted poses and then you take your photo, put it on Instagram or on your Facebook, and everybody, wow, you look amazing, or maybe you don't look amazing. It doesn't matter. But the thing is, it's much more beyond.
Of course.
Let's say this.
This is what I wanted to ask, actually. You were talking about change and choice, and you said that when you started, you felt positive changes. What kind of positive changes are we talking about? Because nowadays, yoga has become some kind of a trend, a fashion. But I think that a lot of people don't really understand what it is. Can you try and explain for people who are not introduced to yoga in the right way?
I would say whenever you start, you always start with something which is easier to feel, which is our body. You know, the physical things are much easier to understand and to feel and to somehow change than the mental things, because those are internal and let's say in this sense more complicated. So what you always start with some kind of exercises. You start to see how those exercises, the stretching and those poses, which are yoga poses, which everybody can see now everywhere, magazines, Facebook, Instagram, how they will affect your body when you do them. Granted that you are guided properly, because yoga poses is not just gym exercise, you do something. Those are more complex and they might affect the body if you're not guided properly, not in a proper way, or you might do them in a proper way. So teacher is important and he will guide you. Then you will notice how those physical exercises affecting you through the body. It might affect your flexibility, it might affect your strength, physical strength. It might affect, let's say, if you have some pains or some kind of malfunctioning of the organs, it might affect it in a positive way. And then you notice those, and also while you're learning all of these physical movements, the main part of it, you learn relaxation. Learn how to relax, and you learn also how to breathe. This is something we always or often forget, or even some people during the life they pick up the wrong breathing habits. So when the breathing is not happening properly, you're never relaxed, you never relax mentally as well, and also it affects everything from posture to work of your, let's say, abdominal organs, digestion, everything. So you pick up many problems along the way. And then so while you learn the poses, you start learning breathing, you breathe more properly, you learn how to relax. This is very short explanation. Of course, it might take months. For some people, it takes years. It took me maybe 2-3 years to feel real, actual benefit, that substantial benefit, and you feel that something actually changing within you and your view on life changing. But if you get there, if you, let's say, patient enough or consistent enough, you get there. And then when the different kind of changes start, when you learn a little bit of relaxation, maybe a little bit of philosophy, and then you start see the world a little bit in a different way. Because important part of, let's say, classic yoga, not only now there are many yoga schools where they teach mainly movement, mainly poses. They don't even teach the breathing. Those I don't take, but if you take classic yoga, the way it originates from India, you learn that yoga can be somehow spread in the whole life, like a lifestyle. Certain ways, you can call it yoga, you can call it awareness, you can call it mindful living, but it can be spread there. So you can take your yoga to right your studio, you can take it to the kitchen, you can take it to your family, how you, let's say, treat them, how you approach the life in general.
It's about attitude.
It's about attitude. It's certain
how
approach.
You see things.
It's how you see things, how you take it, and then you start noticing how, even without changing anything around you, external things or people, your approach and your thinking of that change. So yoga usually advises positive thinking, what is called positive thinking. So when you try to see in every dark, in every hard, in every bad situation, apparently super bad, you try to see something positive as knowledge, lesson, experience, something you can take from it into your future, into your present, into the path that you take in some kind of, let's say, life journey, or some kind of how you live, and you can take it with you to be better person, to do better next time. So in this sense, nothing is mistake, nothing is no need to regret, because even you did something wrong, or you treated somebody in a wrong way, eventually all this is for you to understand how not to do and how to do better. So being better person, somehow do good, be good somehow, and this is for to learn. And then nothing is for nothing, no action, no situation is for nothing, or to never completely negative. Always there is some kind of light, some kind of positive thing. So this is how you approach changes, and then you never you never feel completely bad, and you're always optimistic that somehow, even if now it might be not exactly right, you have the tools to change it
The
somehow.
means, yeah.
By the way, in what language do you teach
Here?
here in Armenia?
It depends on the classes. If it's only, let's say, local Armenians, usually it is in Russian. And if sometimes there are foreigners who are not Armenians, or Armenians from diaspora, I teach in English. So sometimes happens that both of them come, and some doesn't understand Russian, some don't understand English, so then it goes as a class into languages.
Body language.
It's actually class into languages, because I usually teach by speaking, not by showing much. But it's a little bit crazy when the classes are like this, when you need to repeat the instruction in both languages and try to find it, not in a way like you say something in English, those do, and then those in Russian they wait. No, you have to make sure they do all together.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit mental challenge for me, but I like it because it makes you Russian is totally different from English, and the way you explain yoga in Russian and English is also a little bit different. So it's good mental exercise for me to be more efficient, let's say, in
See, she
explaining.
found the positive.
She's
yeah.
always
Yes,
positive. That's
because
what I was thinking.
First time I tried this, it sounded totally crazy, because you feel like you forget things, and it feels like a total mess. You come out from the head like this, from the class, your head is like this, but then slowly you find the way. So 2 languages now, I think half. Sometimes it's more Russian, sometimes more English, and in Lebanon it was only English, because in Middle East they teach only in English. The whole yoga in Middle East is English. So
Can we ask right now, live, especially for Radio One, especially for our show, if there is a certain breathing exercise, maybe for people who are involved in, I don't know, hosting shows or stages or things like this?
There are
like a relaxing.
yes, there are a few
exercise.
breathing exercises which have different purposes. Some of them, let's say, more cleansing or more stimulating. Some of them more calming and relaxing.
We need both.
Yeah.
You need both, yes. But usually the simplest one is what we call in yoga alternate nostril breathing. There are 2 versions of it. Very simple one is a single nostril breathing, when you close one nostril and then you inhale and exhale from
Can we
another
do
one.
it right
we
now?
try?
Few times. Yeah, just let me explain both. We try I think the alternate. It would be easier. So this is one very achievable, unless you have some kind of nose problems when nostrils don't breathe, but most of the people have it open. So you breathe, inhale, exhale, then you switch the nostril and you do another few rounds. And the alternate one is when you alternate. You inhale, then you close that one, you inhale from, you exhale from the opposite nostril.
Okay.
Same nostril, you inhale, then you close and you exhale. So you alternate on exhalation and you do a few rounds. Usually it's very soothing, very relaxing. There is a more, let's say, advanced part of it. When you inhale, then you hold your breath, and only then you exhale. But this is
I've
a little
done
bit
this
more
before.
complicated.
Yeah.
I'm sure you did it if you attended yoga classes. But inhale, exhale is very easy one. And usually they say it's very relaxing. It's balancing the hemispheres of the brain. Because you alternate the nostrils, and if you repeat, let's say 5, maybe 10 rounds, by the end of it you really notice how much more calmer you become. because the breath goes in some kind of a rhythm. Also, it's good to do this with when you inhale and you exhale twice as longer. So when your exhalation's longer than inhalation, it's very soothing and relaxing. Okay.
I'm already relaxed.
Yeah.
Just listening to her. I'm like,
This is exactly what I was thinking.
So-
I'm just afraid to fall asleep. You know? Not
take
because I'm
turns.
bored, but because because it's
Because you're
really,
too
your
relaxed,
voice is
exactly.
very
Yeah.
relaxing. Yeah.
I mean, from what you say, the thing that I understood is it's kind of like yoga. It's kind of like being in touch with your inner self, but through body.
Somehow you start from body, and then you start to understand that there are some layers. You know, sometimes they compare ourselves with some kind of big cabbage or onion, which is, you know, consists of many layers. So what
Okay.
happens when you start a little bit going within you, and you start looking a little bit beyond the body, you start
You don't-
noticing
you
that there are
don't
other things. There are
need that
emotions,
meat.
there are habits,
Yeah.
there are some kind of likes, dislikes, there is ego, there are some emotions, there is some emotional luggage that we carry from the past, also some trauma, some unprocessed emotions, something that, you know, this closet with the skeletons, which is so scary to open. There is a lot of cobweb, something might fall out
That
and
you
things
don't
like,
want
and you don't want to
wanna
open it.
see.
Some even people pretend to, they say I don't have one,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
everybody have one. I have, you have, everybody have. Depends. Some people have a lot of things there, some people have less.
Some people even pretend they don't have a closet.
Exactly, they don't have a closet, so, and everything is fine. But this is why then it's another layer. So you know what are those layers? Some of them may be genuine, the layers that you have, your body, your emotions, some kind of personality. But there are also fake layers, which is what is imposed on us by society, family, some kind of stereotypes that we follow. Also, there are layers that we also put on ourselves, like some social masks, like a makeup, you know, like with you I talk like this, then I come home I talk like this, here I have to be dressed up, I need to have my nails done because otherwise people won't like me, for example. So it's a kind of another layer, and then you lose yourself, you don't understand.
So you don't have those layers?
Everybody have the layers. Everybody have layers, but this is how this practice starts. You start with the body, kind of one layer, and then you start peeling and understand what is unnecessary. Those layers which don't serve you, you get
In a
rid of
good
them
way.
This is
Yeah.
interesting.
somehow, because you start understanding the necessary things, and then you start understanding what is not necessary. You start understand that, let's say, objects is not exactly something that will make you happy or give you lasting happiness. Not happiness which is lasts a moment or a day or a week, but the one which will give you happiness as a state. You will understand this. This is another layer goes, and then another one, and something like that. So you can look at this as an onion or cabbage at yourself, and then to understand. But it takes a bit of a time to go beyond, let's say, some physical sensations, back pain or spine or posture
Of
or
course.
breathing, into something which is more mental, let's say, more internal. And then you start to understand who you actually are, because yoga, if you try to define it, it's not about the body or something. It's who you are and how to be happy. This is the two main questions which you can answer through yoga: who you are and how to be happy.
You
When are
earlier
we starting?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, okay.
I teach 7:30 a.m. classes here nearby, just 50 meters above this, along the street. So 7:30 a.m.
AM? Oh my god. That's not for me.
No,
Any evening classes?
not at the moment. We can always do something personal.
Well, you spoke about ego earlier. So in yoga, because we know that in different, for instance, religions or I don't know, philosophies, a lot of those philosophies or faiths or whatever we want to call them, they reject the ego.
Mm-hmm.
So what about yoga? Yoga. What is
Yoga. I
yoga?
like that.
Yoga
Yoga
ego.
is-
Yoga.
Yoga
Well,
ono.
The whole idea, of course, to somehow go beyond all of this, because in yoga we believe, like yoga sees ego, all these habits, likes, dislikes, and things like that, as some kind of limitations that we have, because this is when we, like, let's say your essence, your consciousness is being affected by the ego emotions, let's say dislikes and habits, and limits you, because the whole idea of yoga that you are, let's say, you are everywhere, you are limitless, you are immortal and everything. So it's a little bit, very high philosophy, and sounds maybe, for most of the people who don't think in those categories, is a little bit abstract subject. But let's say if you look at the things which easy to understand, you can see how sometimes something happens in life, and you end up in some kind of automatic reaction. It could be super happy, hyper reaction. It could be a reaction that takes you very much down if something bad or serious happened. So this is a whole idea how to come out of those emotions, how to let's say withdraw yourself, so you can actually make a choice. How do you react, by understanding the real situation, not by seeing something at the heat of the moment when you don't really understand yet what happened or how it might affect you, because sometimes you wait a little bit, you retreat a little bit with your reaction, and then you see that it changed. The situation changed, and what you saw at the first sight is actually not that. So sometimes
Apart from emotions, yeah, kind of.
yes, emotions. Same goes for the ego. When we are governed by some kind of lower things, and the ego directs us to make some actions, to say some words sometimes, and which might be, hurting others, for example. But you did this because you feel I'm this. The ego usually takes you into some kind of feeling that you are something significant, or say you're something important. But usually, nobody's important, nobody's significant. It's just, regardless who you are, you're just a human being. What kind, and all these, social things, let's say, position in society, salary, wealth, and all of those things, it's all also those layers, that you created, and you created some kind of opinion of yourself because of those. But nothing of this had nothing to do with you as just it's a human being. So, and also, once your health start going bad, however wealthy you are, it all becomes so meaningless.
I mean, how widespread is the concept of yoga in Armenia, and are there any like people who have misconceptions about yoga? We're talking in Armenia, within Armenia.
Within Armenia, I would say mainly it's yoga is known in Yerevan, in the capital, and I don't think there are any yoga centers outside Yerevan, unfortunately. I heard something was opened in Stepanakert a year or two ago, but I don't know if it still exists. There are maybe some classes that they teach in bigger city like Stepanakert or Gyumri in the gyms, in fitness centers. But what kind of yoga this I cannot say. But mainly people here in Yerevan, they know or they tried some classes. Unfortunately, not all of them. And also sometimes people have a lot of misconceptions, because yoga, as you say, it is a trend. So some people who actually teach something else, some kind of esoteric things, spiritual or pseudo-spiritual things, they call their classes as yoga classes. Then you come there, you try it, and if you know what yoga is, you understand that what they teach has nothing to do with this. Unfortunately, it happens like this. Until recently, now slowly it's changing. Most of the teachers here in Armenia were never trained properly. So it's a kind of some self-taught yoga, or they read a book or attended someone's attended someone's classes, and then they call themselves the yoga teachers. Until Few years ago, it was, I think, majority of the people. Now slowly people start traveling, go to India, get properly certified, study not only physical yoga but also philosophy, anatomy, physiology, very important. You cannot teach something like that affecting the body deeply without knowing how actually this body functioning. So this is a part of proper training for proper yoga teacher, because it's not
You
only
could
talking about
harm
ego and
people.
philosophy. If I'm put you in a
Yeah.
certain pose and it's affecting your spine or it's affecting your liver, and I don't know what's the consequences or what's the contraindication, I can talk about philosophy for hours, but if I'm hurting you physically, we are done.
It's nothing.
You know?
Yeah, well,
So
I
that's
know
why.
a couple of people like this who were really disappointed in yoga classes because
Unfortunately.
they were harmed by.
And then the people say
People-
yoga is not for me.
Yeah.
But the problem is not with yoga. The
It's the
problem
right
is
type. You need to find.
yeah, the
something
problem
that
is with qualification of the person who passes the yoga knowledge on you. So this is the other thing. So it should be separated. But most of the people, if they've been hurt, they don't want to get into details. They will just say this is not for me because I came with a problem. The problem got worse. I paid money, and it's not for me. So that's why. But slowly it's changing, and there are some good places to practice, and there are some.
So where
people-
do you practice? You
I
never.
practice at home.
Do you,
You mean
I mean,
where I
where do
teach?
you teach? Yeah, yeah.
I teach at
Sorry.
the moment at two places. If you speak about open classes that everybody can attend, one is Louis Yoga. They have two halls. One is here next to Vernissage, and another one in Mergelian building. It's on Komitas, and another one it's called Yoga Ashram. It's a relatively small place next to Cascade. Both are on Facebook, so it's very easy to find, and nice places, nice studios, and there are some people who do it, the students who come and they practice for quite a lot of time, so it's a really nice, let's say, community, slowly growing, fortunately, and also I teach some at the moment yoga in the offices. This is a new thing when you corporate
that's
yoga.
nice.
When you help the people who sit behind the desk most of the day to feel a little bit better, and in my opinion it should be taught not only as a chair yoga or some kind of neck shoulder release, it should be taught as a proper classes with breathing and everything. This is what I do usually. Here most of the I don't know why it happened, maybe because it's the most successful, let's say, industry in Armenia. Most of the places where this corporate yoga happens is programming companies. So it's strange thing, but they kind of, maybe because it's younger people who work, so some of them have, maybe because they have let's say extra funds to, let's say, provide for their
So
employees.
the smart
kind of-
people know how
Yeah.
to treat their body.
I mean, is it only group sessions or do you have one-on-one sessions?
I do have one-on-one
So
sessions.
this could be done as a one-on.
Absolutely,
one
and
thing.
actually it's better if it's done one-on-one, because then it can be tailored to what you have in terms of your physical or let's say problems in personal life, or maybe it's not a problem, but let's say something that you can work on, because of course group class is something like what they say, average temperature for the hospital. You know, like it doesn't exist. You can take 10 patients, measure temperature of each one of them, then you multiply, you divide, and you get something 36 and 6. But probably one of them is almost dying, from 42. So the group classes is a compromise. So I get sometimes the very beginner who never did yoga before, somebody who practiced for some years,
okay.
so you ideally they should be divided into two groups,
Yes.
beginners and, let's say, continuing students, but it rarely happens. So of course I guide both, and I do my best. Here the groups that I teach mostly is small, so I have a time for everyone, but still you cannot tailor, because somebody comes with knee problem and they shouldn't do certain poses, somebody comes with the back problem, they shouldn't do different poses. So but I have to give poses for everyone, explaining them along the way their contraindication or modifications, which I do. But if there would be one-on-one with every student like that, we wouldn't do straight away the poses which are not good for a person, or it would be modified according to, let's say, capacity of the person. It could be different capacity, it could be physical capacity, let's say, because of some kind of strength or lack of flexibility, different poses there. Could be also mental capacity, because ability to understand, let's say, not only physical things, but let's say ability to relax, how to breathe and everything. It varies from person to person a lot. Some people catch very fast, some people need a little bit of time to digest and to progress. But if you put them in a group class when there is a certain pace, it's like a school,
Yes.
Some students, some pupils, they are very good and
True.
the teacher follows them maybe, but there is somebody who they call, let's say, dumb person, but
they need
the
more
dumb
time.
kid, but they're not dumb, they just need a little bit of
Slower.
time.
They're
slow, but they label them as dumb or the person or the kid who cannot be educated, and then maybe whole the life the person will go with this kind of label, and then the self-doubt will build up and everything. But the same for a group class. Sometimes I see that I need to spend some time with a person, and I just need to explain again, maybe not in front of the class, so the person catches, because maybe in the class he or she was distracted by some kind of thoughts and didn't listen properly, maybe because they need extra explanation, just like that. So one-on-one is always better, because you can always focus on something specific, and a teacher can see you, and you can also ask something which is more important. So I would say the practice is much better when it's like personalized somehow.
I mean, are you always this calm, or is there anything that kind of upsets you,
Of
makes
course,
you
there are many
angry?
things that
What makes you angry?
what makes me
She's so
angry.
calm.
No, of course, there are different situations. I'm a human being, and sometimes I'm tired, or sometimes everybody have their own issues. I have mine, which I'm trying to work on, but sometimes, I'm not, over it. So sometimes it's something strikes and some kind of reaction comes from inside. Some people might read it in a different way than I see it. Of course there is, and then some people get offended or upset or pissed or anything. So it happens with everyone. I try to work on it, but I don't know, how successful. There are people who really dislike me, but this is, I think, nobody likes everyone. So, but it also depends, when you communicate with people, it's like a road with two ways of traffic. So what I do, and the eventual, let's say, mood, it depends not only on me, on my issues, but also on you and your issues.
Yes.
So, the anger sometimes, usually when you get angry, it has nothing to do with the person. It has something to do with
To
you.
your own attitude.
So when I get angry, it's nothing to do with the person or situation. It's something inside of me which I couldn't overcome, or couldn't process, or couldn't come out.
If somebody gets angry, it's their own problem. Okay, now I'm gonna make you angry and go on a little advertisement break. But this is the last break, and we have another 20 minutes to go. And this was very fast, as always. Stay tuned. This is Homesick at Home, and we're here with amazing and very, very wise, wise and relaxing Katia.
Now I'm not listening to this.
Steven's gone, Rafi's gone, Rena, de asa. What am I gonna do?
Well, dear, that's the way men are. Maybe you should try a woman.
What? Rena, kezi çeraf.
Ina hangizdatsi. I meant as a co-host.
Vay. Homesick at home.
This is how we do it. It's Friday night.
Ina hangizdatsi.
Okay, I'm trying to. I'm really hungist.
Today is
relaxed.
Hunky's day.
Yeah.
Today is the relaxation day.
Right.
Every
And
day should be like that.
this is our Homesick at Home show, and we have another 10 minutes. No, not 10 minutes, 8 minutes to go. And I have like 25 questions to ask. So we'll
And
be
I have
fast.
another 25.
A
Yeah.
blitz. With a blitz.
But
Yes
do you
and no,
believe-
but you don't want.
Yeah, no, now let's start yes or no answers. So, do you
Yes.
believe in reincarnation?
Reincarnation.
Yeah.
Let's say I believe that there is something before and after,
Mm-hmm.
but not necessarily reincarnation like you imagine. Like Buddha comes in some certain body and appears new Jesus. In this, I don't believe. But I believe that there was something before. That's why we have some kind of mental luggage, and probably there would be something after. That's why, let's say, your actions now,
Mm-hmm.
bad or good,
Effect.
will have some kind of reaction, and it
yeah.
will affect you now or later. But I believe that whatever you do will have some kind of consequences. So better to be good, to be better, not to have negative consequences. For this, I believe.
In this case, who would you want to be in your next life?
Oh no, there is
Do we have a choice? I thought we didn't.
exactly.
No, I mean,
Exactly.
if you had
Tell me about it. I didn't know we had a
I
choice.
don't have a dreams like that. Actually, I'm very satisfied with who I am. Actually, so I'm, I live maybe not very usual life for most of the people, but I'm at the moment, I'm super satisfied, super grateful for the life I live. So I don't envy anyone, and I don't feel like I want to be this or I want this for to be happier. It's super good the way it is, and for this sense, if it continues that way, I will be very grateful. See sun in the morning.
Okay,
and see sun.
let's just repeat this thing.
Were you like this before yoga?
I know.
You know where going.
Yeah, let's do that. Okay,
That's it.
Katia, we know that you love cooking, right?
Yeah.
Yes, it's some kind of
Tell us about it.
yoga in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yoga
So,
in the kitchen.
Yoga in the cocktails.
I don't drink alcohol.
Is this possible?
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, you can take, let's say, proper eating or healthy diet is also part of yoga is a lifestyle. So this is what I try to explore, and this is the part of all this, let's say, last 10 years journey to discover how food can affect you physically, first of all, and also mentally, because everything affects. Whatever goes inside of you affects you in a certain way. So
What comes in comes out. Maybe.
good if it comes out and not stays in your
Not
body.
all of it comes out, you
Not
know.
all of it comes out. This is some kind of shit
You
talk.
wish.
This
Yes.
was not only about
But the thing
food,
is, it
okay.
might come out, but on the way out, it will affect you somehow. So that's what I try
It
to
will
learn.
scratch you.
Yes,
from
I will
inside.
try to learn how different foods can affect, and so the cooking for me is not just the cooking, but somehow changing relationship with the food and understand how to eat in a way that food makes you feel better, makes you, let's say, healthier. But at the same
Relationship
time,
with food.
you eat healthier, but you eat tasty. This is very important, because of course you don't want to eat something which is tastes like medicine, right? So it should be both, and I believe it could be both. It could be healthy, it could be light, it could be nourishing you, and at the same time you can super enjoy what it is. But you have to learn about the foods, good foods for you, and everybody have a different, let's say, constitution for that. What affecting you and how, by trying, by doing many things. So this is a kind of this kind of kitchen journey for me is also discovering how can you combine it, how can you cook it, and also how can you enjoy it in terms of, let's say, some sweets.
What do you think about Armenian food? And is there anything you really like? Your favorite Armenian
Talagaj.
dish? No.
Are you
I
vegetarian,
am
by the way?
vegetarian.
Of course.
I am vegetarian, so all the hash and
No
the
doubt.
hashlama
But is this
hozibut is
like-
passing me.
Is this a typical thing for a person who is in yoga? Like
Yes, yoga advises vegetarian diet, so there is no maybe or not about this. It is vegetarian
okay.
diet, and it's very simple diet. Like you exclude many things, but not in a way like you punish yourself or you. I don't feel I'm giving up on something. There are so many things that you can discover after you give up the animal food.
So you replace kind of like
You replace, or even you don't replace, you discover new things. You don't
Okay.
even feel this is a substitute. Before I became vegetarian, there were so many things I never tried before, even I never heard of them. And then you learn and you read and you try and everything. And fortunately here in Armenia, the climate is fantastic. You get the fresh produce most of the year, and different kind of things, and what you can eat is never limited actually, though I don't eat like most of the things that maybe people eat on daily basis, but you can eat a lot of things. So speaking
So
about
what's your favorite food in Armenia?
in Armenia, something that I cook
Did
usually
you see her
I do-
eyes roll?
yeah, I don't actually I don't
Ave look.
Aviluk. This is it.
There you go.
This is what my dinner today. Soup from Aviluk. Yes,
I've
exactly.
never tried that,
You should try. Before I came here,
It
and
looks funny.
it looks funny.
Why?
You should know how to cook it. Otherwise, it would be super bitter.
Ave look
but-
of soup is very good.
Yes, exactly. I
With-
do.
With nuts and everything.
I have a yes. It's like very
Garlic.
very soup like what they say in Arabic, makhluta, something like.
Makhluta.
So,
it's
but-
like the borscht, I think, here.
Yes, but
Similar.
aviluk soup is like you have lentils in that, aviluk, walnuts, dry fruits, I think lemon
I'm
oil,
getting hungry.
something
Dried
like that.
fruits?
Dried
Dried
fruit.
fruit?
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, in the soup.
Usually
Yes,
it's dried plums.
plums.
Plums, so
apricots
apricots,
are
and also I
good.
think they put bulgur, so
Yeah.
something like that. But I do, let's say, heavily modified version of this because usually I take some dish and then I see how can I do it.
Okay, let's go
very
eat.
interesting. Yes, so usually I just variate it so much that I have a friend, he makes a lot of fun of this because he also cooks similar to what I do, but he's more traditional in this sense. So when I tell him that I put buckwheat instead of lentils into aviluk soup,
It's Russian
so,
modification.
yeah, it's not really Russian, but it's let's say
Well,
what I
yeah.
have at hand. I can
Soviet.
put chickpeas or something like
No,
that.
you improvise. That's
Yeah,
good.
I improvise. So usually I take something which is, let's say, I see the recipe and then I see I can do it in a pure form. I can modify it. Maybe taste will change, and but it might be still good. So sometimes you try things, or you don't have an ingredient, you have something else. You don't have
Yeah.
I don't know, cabbage. You have a carrot. You put that, and you see if taste is good. And then
Girls, we're done.
something like that. So aviluk is very good. I never heard of it before I came to Armenia. You learn. There now the season starts for the wild herbs like sibech, sindrik, and all this stuff.
Time is up.
Yeah,
This is super fun.
Time is up, but I have a very
Yes.
important question. and a
No,
very
we
fast
don't
one.
have time. It's 9. It's 10. I'm sorry.
It's even faster passing.
You
than
have
my
to come
classes.
back.
Renajan, but you feel free to interact with Katia after the
Yes,
show.
yes, I'm going to
No
do that
problem,
for
yes.
sure. Yes.
I'm always very happy that anybody writes to me or something. Like I don't usually try to convince people to change or let's say preach something. I usually answer to questions, not try to tell them, like advertise yoga is amazing, it will change your life. No, people interested, I speak, but I never try to convince them that
Yeah.
this is good
Yoga
for them.
speaks for
So
itself.
how can people get in touch with you?
She
right
did it.
now?
I'm
people
on
who
the
are
Facebook,
listening.
I'm on Instagram, so I'm tagged in the post.
Yeah, so
Okay.
anybody,
one.
if you guys
So-
want to get information about Katia
You
and
can
her
always message me
practices,
any person who is not sure what yoga is or
yeah,
why,
so
why
through
he
our
needs it.
page for
I'm-
Radio Van, and also
Exactly.
they can find
I will be
Katia
happy
in
to
Facebook.
reply to anyone. The same way, people ask me things, anywhere elsewhere. Here, I look different. So sometimes people ask me questions, why you here, what you do, and something like this. So it could be for anyone, and I'm very happy to speak from
I
everyone.
hate to say this, but our time is up. This
It was
we had
very
a pleasure to speak
Thank
to you,
you.
and I think we'll continue
Likewise.
after the show.
Yes,
But
yes.
we're done for tonight. We wish everybody to have a great weekend. It was a great
And a
Friday night for us,
relaxing one.
relaxing, and a
Relaxing.
great Friday night for us. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you.
We hope that you enjoyed it as well. And for those of you who want to get in touch with Katia, you can always write to our page and find her on Facebook. This was Homesick at Home, our English speaking show with Rina D and
Ina MK.